If you're new in town or just new to this whole podcast thing, you're tuning in to Lore by Night, the podcast that discusses all things vampiric with no fear of breaching the Masquerade. In this episode, we shall review the Bygone Bestiary, a World of Darkness sourcebook. I shall present my thoughts and opinions on its presentation and mechanics to help you better decide whether this is the sourcebook for you. Have you ever run a game in the World of Darkness universe, whether it be vampire, mage, or werewolf, and you just run out of steam? Have you sat there in front of your computer, tablet, or pad of paper and just ponder at the wonders you could throw at your players? Have you ever thought the one thing that this ongoing chronicle needs is a fucking dragon? Now, if your answer is yes to at least one of these questions, then oh boy do I have the sourcebook for you. Released September 1998, the Bygone Bestiary is a sourcebook that details the reality of mythological creatures and their role in the world of darkness throughout history that aims to be used primarily in the Dark Ages setting and Mage the Sorcerer's Crusade, which is the Mage the Ascension historical setting in the Renaissance period of history. It technically was released as part of the latter's line, but with enough imagination and freedom, one can easily adapt this to most World of Darkness settings. And as St. George's Day is just around the corner, I thought it would be fun to review this interesting book. But before we dive into the book review proper, here are the rules to the Lore by Night book reviews. I will explore snippets of the lore, mechanics, and rules found within the tome. I will look as to how they are presented and how easily they are conveyed to new and old players alike. As this is a review written and presented by me, all thoughts and opinions are my own, so if you disagree with something I've said, that is totally fine. It does not mean that you are right and I'm wrong, and vice versa. As with my previous book reviews, I will start at the very beginning, which is the physical book itself, which currently sits nicely upon my lap. Unlike most of the books I have reviewed, this one is a soft cover rather than a hard copy, so I can't copy and paste the same part of my previous script this time. This book is printed with a very nice purple haze sort of effect, similar to the Mage the Ascension robes or cloth that adorns the backgrounds of those books. In the centre features a gorgeously illustrated black wyvern and Pegasus battling out in an orange sky, which reminds me almost of the sort of paintings you would find on ancient Greek pottery, only much more detailed and impressive. On the back of the book has the standard blurb format, accompanied by a more cartoonish drawing of a purple cockatrice. This leads me to talk about the art of the book itself, and I have mixed feelings. Through some research, I have learned that most of the cartoonish art was done by a Steve Prescott, whose illustrations do a brilliant job capturing the grandiose magical nature that these creatures are meant to have. I'm particularly fond of his dragon drawings. The downside I have with this is that I feel that very little of it holds up to the World of Darkness standard in terms of consistency. That said, this is a book about playable mythical creatures in the World of Darkness, so perhaps a different style is warranted. When you open the book and read the short story, you are greeted with the standard Introductory Chapter that details what the book aims to cover and what one may find inside. It takes multiple opportunities to tell the reader that if you don't like the ideas presented in the book, you do not have to use them, which really doesn't do much to place my confidence in the book's material. It is either going to be incredibly stupid, which it is in concept admittedly, poorly written, and or highly insensitive. Either way, it gives off a curious aura that the authors don't trust their material either way. One mention is enough, I promise. The chapter ends with how one might include said mythical creatures in Vampire the Dark Ages, Werewolf the Apocalypse, and Changeling the Dreaming Games. Most of the ideas are placed in the Vampire the Dark Ages paragraph, presumably because it is the splat most readers would have in their library, and probably the least likely in the World of Darkness games to include bygones, which is what the book refers to as mythological creatures. It is a weird comment to make, given the World of Darkness assumes that vampires, werewolves, and fairies exist. Chapter 1 makes up the vast majority of the book, which is the Bygone Bestiary. It presents a catalogue of mythological creatures ranging from your usual bygones such as, but not limited to, unicorns, griffins, krakens, and a shit ton of dragons. It also has slightly more obscure bygones like the harpies and kelpies, and some totally weird ones. A particular standout to me is the Sea Bishop, an aquatic missionary with a pair of testicles for a chin. It focuses on European literature and myth for the most part, which is a fairly safe mood from the Western developers, but I do feel with a slightly larger and more diverse team, this book could have presented some even more unique creatures that their mostly Western buyers would never have even heard of otherwise. As well as the mythos and description of the Bygone's appearance, information is provided on the canonical future fate of each Bygone, how they all cease to exist in the Skinlands, somewhere between the 12th and 15th centuries. As depressing as it is to read countless examples of death and hiding in the Umbra, I do like these sections, similar to how I praised the book House of Tremere for doing just this, as it does provide some interesting ideas for long-era spanning chronicles or weird modern-era stories. There are even role-playing hints for the stereotypical member of each Bygone, in addition to stats for STs to use and players who wish to take the reins of their favourite Bygone, treating it as a template character sheet. The following chapter is almost identical to the first chapter, but this time has its focus on a smaller pool of more mundane animals like dogs, lions, bats, snakes and so forth. Whilst more natural to the world of darkness and of course our own, I do feel the pool of creatures the authors gives us to play with is rather limiting. To document and stat every single animal in existence would be a silly affair, but a bit more than what you would find in the standard kiddies animal book would have been nice. Chapter 3, the third and final chapter of the book, is all about character creation, which is probably where the book is at its most wacky. As per usual World of Darkness character creation chapters, a great amount of detail and questions are presented to the reader to have they truly think and embody their character concept when determining attributes, abilities and backgrounds. It has the reader question their Bygone characters' views on humanity and the world as a whole, which is all incredibly interesting, as are the variety of merits and flaws unique to this book. It just baffles my mind how serious the authors treat this chapter in what otherwise feels like a joke book for storytellers and players. And that leads to the main flaw of this book for me. Despite its valiant efforts, I personally find it very difficult to understand how one could probably use this as a player's guide. The Bygone and animal descriptions make for excellent role-playing as support casting members, but what is actually provided on a mechanical level is very limiting and in some instances pretty unplayable, as too many a magical creature could ruin the otherwise serious and balanced game. I could be wrong, however, and just simply lack the imagination. If you by chance have done this, do let me know somehow. I genuinely would love to hear your wacky tales. The Bygone Bestiary is a very strange and surprisingly well written book that provides lots of inspiration for storytellers running any sort of World of Darkness game where strange creatures tend to come up a lot. Whether you want to have Garou chasing dragons in the Umbra or medieval vampires marvelling at a unicorn in the New Forest, this book is a must-have for the fantastical storyteller that wants to put a bit of wonder in their own World of Darkness. It is certainly not for everyone, but definitely worth it if you wish to totally confuse your Dark Ages or Modern Ages players. And for those of you who are new to the Lore by Night brand and the reviews I occasionally do, I do not do out of 10 scores because they are subjectively pointless. One person's 10 out of 10 is another's 3 out of 5 stars, which is another's minus 42 out of 100, so I shall rate this book Cast Iron Stomach out of 10, as that is just as helpful as a proper out of 10 score. To be kept updated, follow the Lore by Night VTM Twitter and Instagram pages to find out when we will upload each episode. You can also find out by subscribing to the YouTube channel and clicking on the little bell, as you'll be immediately notified when the latest episode is live. Until next time, farewell.